Yeah, the study was commissioned based on the pace that the tripartite FTA had set. The tripartite FTA is the coming together in October 2008 of three regional economic communities, COMESA, EAC, and SADC, to form a single FTA to address some of the issues that have actually challenged regional integration in Africa, such as the concept of or the principles of multi-membership and overlapping membership in the regional economic communities, issues of infrastructure as they affect trade, and all the issues around trade liberalization and so on. And so based on that step which they took, it was conceived and kind of felt that if other regional economic communities will copy the example of the tripartite FTA, then the idea and the goal of achieving an intra-Africa FTA at the same time will help achieve, foster the achievement of the economic community of Africa, that is as per the Abuja Treaty. And so that is the aim of the study, and that was how the study was set up.
So could you
broadly speaking, one can say, based on the study, that the prospect for an inter-Africa FTA are there. There are prospects, but there are challenges. A lot of challenges in terms of diversities, in state of status of trade liberalization, issues of infrastructure and other areas that support trade. There is also disaggregation and non-homogeneity, if you like, or heterogeneity in the approaches that some of the RECs are following up on some other areas that lead to development, such as the negotiations, economic partnership agreement negotiations with the European Union. These are issues that pose challenges, but given the fact that some of these RECs are committed, the tripartite, for instance, have moved quite fast in developing the set of agreements. They have even prepared, the second summit of the tripartite that will endorse those agreements will soon take place in South Africa. So the prospects are there, and they are making progress, but slow. And then in this study, based on what I found in this study, I tried to prescribe that other regional economic communities could begin to also form their own multi-REC FTAs, like in the West, you can have the AMU or UMA, ECOWAS, and the UMU coming together to form an FTA similar to the tripartite. And then in the Central, you have CIMAC and ECAS also coming together, and they could be joined by Cape Gal, so that they can also form an FTA. By the time we have three FTAs coming together, then we are getting closer to an intra-Africa FTA, which will then help to accelerate the pace of regional integration in Africa. we know that these things are not going to be easy because of diversities, issues of rules of origin, issues of language, currencies, and multiple memberships. But we know, and the study proves, that one key benefit that will arise from the formation or establishment of the multi-rec FTA and eventually a grand inter-Africa FTA is the fact that there will be improved markets, larger and improved markets that will have economies of scale, will have efficiency in production, and therefore will diversify the economies of these African countries and therefore make them trade more among themselves. Structurally, one can say the absence of very efficient infrastructural system, roads, even information and communication technology, as well as energy. These are the key areas from the technical or if you like, the structural perspective. But from a political perspective, a very strong hindrance is lack of political will. A lot of member states see membership in multi-rec FTA or group FTA as an avenue for ceding their authority or for losing their sovereignty, and so they are sometimes reluctant to give this formation and this initiative the necessary political, financial, and moral support, backstopping that they need, and that's a major challenge. And also related to that is the issue of, related to infrastructure and technology, is the issue of failure of member states to add value to their products, so that you find that our member states are trading with outsiders where value adding is done, rather than trade with insiders, fellow member states within REX or in Africa, because they lack the ability to add value through industrialization to their products. And that issue of exporting homogeneous primary products have been a big problem in increasing intra-Africa trade. Absolutely so, and that is the merit, and that's the worthwhileness of the study, and then of course of the initiative. That they understand the underlying assumption is that if we form the inter-rec FTAs, we begin to take advantage of the comparative advantage we have. We begin to harness and pull together our resources and to be able to now add value, to be able to create centers of excellence and centers of efficiency in the supply of specialized goods. Specialized, people, or regions specializing on products that they have the comparative and the competitive advantage to produce, and then exporting it to other regions that have their own, their own competitive or comparative advantage, so that trade within and between regions will be based on specialization, on efficiency, and therefore not remain as primary exporters of primary products. It was quite well received in terms of exposing some of the challenges and making definite prescriptions on practical ways of advancing our position towards regional integration. To some degree, I still consider the study a preliminary, because it helped to tease out, and apart from the study reports and result and report which I presented, the discussions also help to tease out certain issues, areas that need to be studied in depth or need to be focused on as nagging and lingering issues that tend to frustrate or forestall regional integration. So those comments were well taken. Comments about what I've already mentioned: lack of political will, issues of outside intervention, over dependence on foreign financial support. While we have the means of improving on our technological know-how, we have the means to be able to develop our capacity to handle our trade, and if we harness these attributes, we should be in a better position to call the shots in terms of negotiations, both within the bilaterals with EU and the multilaterals with the WTO. So the report was well received. Apart from being preliminary in teasing out these issues, burning issues, I personally believe now that we have been able to identify some of the long-term challenging issues, the next step into that study is to, from my personal perspective, is to build a macro model that will now begin to look at all these issues in a greater detail, plug them into the model, and see how now and in what direction they will affect regional integration in Africa. Well, naturally, I am an optimist. In Africa, we have no choice. We just have to move forward. It has not been easy, based on my experience in the field and also my experience while in the ECA, trying to relate to the regional economic communities. My observation here during this meeting is that even the RECs are not showing as much enthusiasm as the UNECA is showing. So I still see some little disconnect, if you like. My optimism will lie in our ability to plug these gaps between the communication, the cooperation, and the association between the UNECA, the RECs, as partners in pursuing this goal of a common union, a customs union for Africa and intra-African trade that will dovetail into regional integration in Africa.